Hello, and thanks for joining me today. I just wanted to take a quick moment and introduce myself before we get into it. My name is Adam Whitwell, and today we are going to be discussing open educational resources. First and foremost, we will be using a particular case study as the focal point of my analysis. It's by Stacy Katz. The title is Leveraging Library Expertise in Support of Institutional Goals, a case study of an open educational resources initiative. I do have a couple of goals with my presentation today. Okay. First, I would like to provide a working, solid definition of what an open educational resource is and what it could be. I would also like to highlight cost as a barrier to degree achievement, especially to members of marginalized communities in higher education. And third, I would like to offer open educational resources as an alternative to traditional course material selection as a solution to this cost barrier. And finally, I will expose how the library, and specifically the open educational librarian, the open educational resource librarian, is perfectly positioned to deliver on these key themes. Now, my working thesis for this is that the open educational resources of a higher educational institution benefit populations of higher education institutions through student savings and accessibility to pedagogical materials. One particular controllable cost for higher education is textbooks. Just kind of pulled some interesting facts out of the case study. So, according to the Florida Virtual Campus Student Textbook and Course Material Survey, students report taking fewer courses, avoiding registering for a course, dropping a course, or withdrawing from a course due to high textbook costs. Furthermore, it takes it as far as going 66% of students will avoid purchasing course materials due to these steep prices. So, what exactly is an open educational resource? So, according to Stacy Katz, she pulled UNESCO's working definition. UNESCO coined open educational resources, the actual name, in 2002. However, the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation has coined or developed a working definition of teaching, learning, and research resources that reside in the public domain or have been released under an intellectual property license that permits their free use and repurposing by others. Now, a couple of, I would say, pretty critical components of an educational resource. They are enabled by technology, but not necessarily digital. And a really, really great way to memorize this, and it's also provided by Stacey Katz in her case study, was the 5 R's, specifically retain, revise, reuse, remix, and redistribute. So we now understand that an open educational resource is specifically defined by the Creative Commons licensing as well as its specific positioning in public domain. Now, let's bring back cost to the forefront of the conversation for a moment. So, there are a lot of fixed finances when it comes to higher education. For example, tuition, room and board. However, course material selection is in the hands of the professors. So, that being said, we have an opportunity to select course materials as educators um, that would really, really not hinder the student, especially on the level of cost. So on the screen, you're going to see some elements in course material selection that's commonly used. And again, I would like to highlight that cost to students. Stacy Katz specifically pulls a statistic that only 22% of professors are satisfied with the cost of the course materials that they have selected. So, in this study, Stacy Katz, we have Lehman College, right, which is a city university of New York. located in Bronx, New York, second poorest county in New York, bottom 5% of counties in the United States. So this is really interesting, and especially to highlight my point of how OERs can be effective to serve marginalized communities. This specific community, only 27% of residents aged 25 to 64 have a 2-year degree. It's important to note that there has been some zero textbook cost initiatives on the behalf of the City University of New York. It began in 2014 with two colleges. So we have BMCC and City Tech, Borough of Manhattan Community College, and New York City College of Technology. The original initiative, the original OER initiative, and that's important to note because you're going to hear that kind of terminology, OER initiative, right? Began with the Leonard Leaf Library in 2016 at Lehman College, like I had said, and it was an OER slash ZTC. ZTC is going to be the acronym that we use for Zero Textbook Cost Initiatives, right? So it began with 3 staff members with $3,000, each receiving a stipend of $1,000 and training. Now, this, of course, exploded when Governor Cuomo decided to allocate an additional $4 million to City University of New York for open educational resources specifically. So when this happened, the OER initiative structure changed slightly. So we now have a working group of 5 library faculty, okay? And how they went forward with the OER initiative was call for proposals, okay? So we have proposals that included number of sections, number of students, current textbook costs, supplemental resources, faculty rationale, preliminary thoughts, and specific training needed to complete the curation of the open educational resource. Through this initiative, through this OER initiative, we have two main impacts. We namely see student savings and the pedagogical benefits, okay? So let's talk about student savings real quick. It can be a little bit tricky to calculate, but how we calculate for the purposes of this case study, we have previous textbook cost times the number of students enrolled equals student savings. So if you take a look at this table, from 2017 to 2018, we have a total of 1,042 students, right, who participated, okay, in this open educational resource initiative. Or not we necessarily, but this case study indicates that they saved this student population $149,328. And as far as measuring the pedagogical benefits, I mean, the main pedagogical benefit is going to be the accessibility to materials, right? We have this 21st century unique need that we need access to our resources anytime, anywhere. So where does that leave us? How do academic librarians and their spaces demonstrate value to their parent organization? How do these OERs, create these cross-campus relationships, right? Is this OER librarian, is this a new role, or is this an expanded role of previous responsibilities, right? What about sustainability concerns, right? This funding is definitely going to go away. So, I think it's important to note that where there is librarian expertise, institutional support, and stipends, there will be an OER initiative, right? So, the most important thing is that we start the conversation. Through this case study, it is clear that OERs benefit populations of higher education institutions through student savings and accessibility to pedagogical materials.